Hi there, how we doing? We doing good? That's great. So, today I am here with the mental health Q&A I mentioned a little bit ago. So, I just want to inform you all that I am very, very excited to be making this video for you all because it is one that I think is going to be very, very beneficial for me as a person. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity to do this. But before I get into anything, I would like to make a quick little announcement. And that announcement is that I have officially made my Twitch channel that I mentioned in the Q&A announcement video. I am very, very excited to be releasing this. On there, I plan to be doing some stuff with maybe Mario Maker 2, a lot of game randomizers. So if you are at all interested in that, I will leave the link down in the description below to my Twitch, and I will also leave it down in a pinned comment in the comment section below. But without a further ado, let's get right to the question. How do you get over shame over feeling you've let the people you know or your community down? So this is already one from the very beginning that I think will personally hit quite to home for me. It hits me right here because oftentimes I've had this feeling. So as someone who's had personal experience with this feeling, I'll give you the best advice I can give you on this. So a big part of feeling this shame is you want to be able to ask yourself a certain question. There's two different questions that can lead down two different paths if you're feeling a certain way. Now, the first thing you should keep in mind before you even ask yourself these questions, however, is do you personally feel like you did your best in whatever you did that you may feel like you had let people down with? And that's where these two branching things will lead off to. So the first one is if you have felt like you've done your best, if you feel as if you've done everything you could. If you feel that way, then I think the best thing that you should realize is that you should just safely assume based on how well you know the person or your community, that they will be very supportive and say, oh no, you haven't let us down. We realize that you have done everything you can do. And if they are a good person or a good fan base, then they will, they will understand it. And if you need to take a step back with whatever you do, I know that's kind of going off of a more YouTube perspective of things, but I mean, obviously that's where I can relate the most to this kind of thing. But oftentimes if you just need to take a step back or you need to relax a bit, that's, the person or the community will understand. Obviously that branches off into a sort of different thing, but it relates to a sort of similar thing. Now, the other situation is B, if you feel as if you kind of haven't done your best, if you feel like you didn't do your best, which to some people some people would think otherwise, some people would disagree with you. And it's all up to just how, seeing how you did. But if you feel as if you have not done the best you can do, the first question you should think before anything is, what can I do to better improve my ethic of what I am doing? Just let that sort of question sink in for you a bit and just give it some thought. And depending on what you end up coming to, you can later tell this person or your fan base that, hey, this is what I'm going to better work on doing to improve in the future. And who knows, even some of your fan base or this person will probably disagree with you and might say, hey, no, we realize that you've worked really hard and I think you really have done your best, so don't put yourself down like that. So that's the basic advice for that I have, and I feel as if it's really important, but just don't put yourself down too much is a lot of the bottom line with that kind of question. I know this will probably be long and I apologize, but I have nobody to really talk to about this and I'd rather just do so. Recently, I have been anxious over small things, like me drawing for this one show for a while, then suddenly drawing my own characters, or me not watching this show as much as I used to. I would genuinely feel crappy because I only spent an hour watching a show I enjoy, yet I spent maybe 3 hours yesterday watching it. I feel like I need to keep a cycle or else I'll just feel like crap. I also daydream to an unhealthy extent about dark things or just unrealistic things. Would these be signs of just anxiety or something more? So this is obviously one that's got a lot cram-packed into it, but I'm just going to try and give the best opinion and my general view on it as I can. But again, I am not a professional, so if I say, oh, this seems like more like an anxiety thing, don't take that into account and say, boom, he said this because, again, I'm not a licensed therapist or anything, but I kind of feel as if this could go two different ways, and I feel like one definitely leads more towards the other, but I definitely think this could have something to do with anxiety, especially based off the fact that one of the very first thing that this person mentioned was that they get anxious over small things. This can be a sign of a more severe anxiety type situation. And again, it could be something else, as I am about to mention. And as much as I don't want to believe this, it could be both due to what is said in this. So the other thing that I feel like it could be, and I feel like it leans a bit more towards this when it comes to the seesaw type situation. I feel like it leans a bit more towards, I personally feel as if this leans a bit more towards depression. A certain form of depression, I couldn't pinpoint one right now. However, I feel as if this leans more towards depression because one of the big things that is mentioned throughout the beginning is that there is a show that they used to watch, or a show that they've been watching, but they don't watch it as much as they used to now. I feel like something that could later support this is also the fact that it could be a bit more of a manic form of depression. Not necessarily manic depression, but a depression that doesn't necessarily go on long episodes or anything. Because one thing that the person mentions is that they only spent an hour watching a show they enjoy, which in itself, the fact that they mention only could be a depression thing if they had previously been watching it longer. But the person also mentions, yet I spent maybe 3 hours yesterday watching it, which means that a lot of their feelings could waver a bit. So it could be a more manic, just sporadic form of depression, or it could be something else. Again, not a licensed therapist. But one thing that really intrigues me about this question is the very last sentence. So oftentimes with people who have depression, this is usually something that we don't think about with this kind of thing, but it should be pointed out that a lot of people with depression are probably going to have deeper daydreams. They're going to probably daydream a bit more often because a lot of times the issue with depression is that they are really left into their own thoughts. They're more confided into their own they're more confined into their own thoughts. They don't really have an outside outlet unless they can break the chain, break free, and reach out to someone. And along with that, on top of the fact that depression oftentimes, as you know, is left with kind of overlapping the positive thoughts that you may have with very negative thoughts, this can really lead to a cacophony of just, okay, so not only are we going to be daydreaming, but there's these dark things, these negative things that are going to be pushed into my head that are really going to weigh me down. So those two are a very big killer. So overall, I personally think this leads a way more towards depression. Not just a bit more towards depression, but this could also have something to do with anxiety based on that first sentence. Or again, it could be both, but let's just safely hope that it's not. But it would be very good and very right of you to possibly check that out with a professional and see what you can do. But if you want my personal opinion on it, I feel as if this leans a bit more towards depression. My friends have mental health issues. I try to be there for them, like with talking to them about it when they want to, or just offering my time to them. If I can, how can I help more? So, first of all, before anything, I very, very much applaud you for being a supporter of them. It's very, very nice to see more people offering help to those who are in need. So very good on you for that. So as someone who's a big advocate for mental health awareness like myself, the best advice that I can give you is that there's kind of two different ways to look at this. The first way to look at it is on the side of the emotional support, the emotional side of things. Now, while I feel as if it is good to learn both of these ways, there's also a certain type of people. Depending on the person, I feel like one way could work better than the other. The route of emotional support, I feel as if could work better for people who might be suffering a bit lighter on depression. They're not in the more severe, dark depths of it. But if they also just need a person to be there, maybe just a person to vent to, they're not necessarily looking for a solution in that moment. But if they just need to rant or vent to someone about stuff, that emotional support type is usually going to come into play quite well, especially since the other type won't be necessarily as much in need. Oftentimes, the things you should probably say to them if you're going to have to give this emotional support is, while it may be cliche, the typical stuff like, telling them that you're going to be there for them, how much you care for them. But one also big thing, and I feel as if this is very important, is the other method. And I feel as if this applies more to the people who are in the deeper, dark, methods and stuff. They feel like they can't get out of the depression. And that other method is being a solution solver. Now, this is personally a way of helping people out that I recently developed. When I first started helping people out with mental health awareness, I did not take this into account. I was more of the only emotional support type, which, while I am very, very big on the emotional support type, this is also very, very important for people who are strongly suffering. A huge thing that you should realize ahead of time as a solution solver is you want to be able to listen well, listen to the problem that's going on and be able to process all of it well. So this is very, very important in that regard. Once you get to the point where you feel like you are able to process everything that this person has said, you want to think of it as if it's a branching thing. So there's like a couple different tree limbs, and all of them lead to different solutions, whether they are temporary or whether they could lead to permanent solutions in the end. For an example here, as dark as this might sound, let's say maybe this person is a teenager in high school who doesn't really have the most stable family. Maybe they come from parents who fight a lot or something like that. Maybe it's something like that. So in this solution, you could talk about a couple different other things. Maybe the person isn't comfortable with where they are, and maybe they feel like they need to temporarily stay. So for one thing, and this could tie into the emotional support, you could offer their assistance to maybe stay with them if you can, or you could ask them if maybe they have like a relative they could stay with, possibly, or if they feel as if they could possibly push through it, and if you are willing to be there for them, would that help enough? And again, those three things I just mentioned, that's like the branching path. That was basically just three limbs on the branch, and the person who is suffering can choose which one is best for them. And if there's not another one, maybe you can, if one of those three won't work for them, maybe you can choose another one. Maybe you can think of another one. And until then, if that doesn't work, give that emotional support. How was your early social life? Were you shy at all? So obviously this one's a bit more about me, so hey, I guess a more traditional Q&A, sort of. This is actually a question that I was a bit hesitant to answer because, again, it's a mental health thing, and plus it's about me, you know? My early social life was kind of, it was pretty normal, if you will. It was average. Growing up, as I got into stuff like kindergarten, we're just going to start it from kindergarten, basically, when I started school. I was very desperate to make friends, if you will. I didn't really know how to completely make my jump start into making friends, if you will. So I was very eager to make any friends I could. Any connection that I started to make with a person, I would take that offer up straight away, and I'd make as many friends as possible. I had this philosophy that you needed as many friends, you needed to gather a bunch of friendships, which isn't at all true. You don't need like a million friends to be happy. However, I realized as I started to get to around the middle of elementary school, I kind of started centering myself off from people. And yes, I did end up becoming shy. And I noticed that the friendships that I did start to gather, the little that I did, were also with people who were shy, which is a part of, finding friends who connect with you well. So that's a bit of what my early social life was like. And if you kind of, as a little bonus, my social life nowadays is actually sort of similar to how it was then, except I'm not necessarily shy. It's just I'm very confined off into a kind of this group of friends that I have that make me more happy than anything. And there's people very, very notable in that friendship group that a lot of you are familiar with. Sometimes I fear about terrible things happening to me and my loved ones. Just a lot of generalized anxiety. So what I would like to know is how to not think about it as much. So this is understandably a very, very hard one to touch on. This is something where it's literally, obviously this person's trying as much as they can to not think about all these dark things and all these negative things. And it can generally just be difficult. And while I would definitely say that this is definitely a piece of generalized anxiety, it's also just probably a bit of depression kicking in. It's very overpowering, and it's very hard to stray away from it. It's like it's grabbing onto your arm, and it's like you don't know how to escape it. And it's very much tugging you on the side of depression rather than breaking free from depression. So the best advice that I could probably give here is to be able to surround yourself around positivity. And I know in some situations, depending on where you are and the life that you are living currently, for some it's harder than others. For some, they may be surrounded by negativity already, and they already have other negative thoughts just kind of toppling on top of that. You know, they might have that sort of situation going on. But the best thing that I can recommend to you, if you are in a situation where you do have positive things around you, but you are it's your thoughts that's kind of getting to you, surround yourself with that positivity. Surround it with as much as you can. Get as much positivity in your life as you can on the outside, because at the end of the day, mentally, that's going to help you improve. That is going to make it so that those overpowering thoughts, where the negative overpower the positive will overpower the negative by that point. So that's one thing you really want to keep in mind if you are able to get this positivity into your life and be able to distract yourself from thoughts like that, because understandably, those bad things happening to your loved ones, that's a very big negative, and I understand it can take a lot to get out of that. However, if you are in a place where unfortunately there is not a lot of positivity, and on top of that you have a lot of negative thoughts already, which can unfortunately happen if you're in a negative environment. As controversial of an opinion as this could be, maybe look towards some motivational stuff here on the internet if you can. Guys, it may be the internet, and I know the internet can be a cruel place a lot of the time, but I guarantee you there are a lot of motivational speakers for people who suffer with depression who can help you out here. I myself try to be a big one here on YouTube. I try to do as much as I can. That's really the perfect dream image that I imagine this channel being, is a mental health motivational, like a mental health awareness channel. Whether I educate you all on topics about mental health, or if I'm giving you really just this big advice, some motivational speeches, if I can. That is my dream. That is what I dream of doing. So a lot of times, if you can't find yourself doing it outside in your social life, just find yourself being able to do it here on the motivational speech side of things here on the internet. The internet may be a cruel place sometimes, but there is also a very, very positive place for the internet. And I feel as if the motivational speeches for people who suffer with mental illness can really benefit someone. And if it doesn't help all that much, then there are always professionals to turn to. And I feel as if there is always, again, you got to realize there's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and I cannot express that enough. So yeah, that was the mental health Q&A. I feel as if this was extended a bit long, which I kind of expected, because obviously these questions were going to take time to answer, and I'm very glad that I had this opportunity to do this all for you, and I really hope that I can do this in the future, because it has felt really good answering these questions, and I am very appreciative that you all have given me the opportunity to do this. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video, and I will see you recruits in the next video. Peace.